The sequence of pre-tribulational events, review number 3. The third birth pang. We've discussed the first two birth pangs, World War I and II, as well as the reestablishment of Israel as a state. The first birth pang set the stage for the second, and in 1948 Israel became a state, restored to part of their traditional homeland. After the War of Independence in 1948, Israel had control of large portions of land, but lacked control over a couple of areas. That brings us to the third birth pang, which is Jewish control of the old city of Jerusalem, specifically the mountains of Israel and the Temple Mount. This control was one of the results of the Six-Day War in 1967. Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum is proposing that Jewish control over that area is required in order for a temple to be constructed and the temple service to be reinstituted. He mentioned that the Six-Day War itself is not prophesied in Scripture, but the results are. Jewish control over the Temple Mount is critical to allow for some prophecies to be fulfilled. 4 scriptures emphasize that there needs to be a functioning temple in the tribulation. Daniel 9:27, Matthew 24:15, 2 Thessalonians 2:3 and 4, and Revelation 11:1 and 2. Daniel, for example, specifically mentions a temple in operation with regular sacrifices being performed. Besides the control over the Temple Mount, Israel also gained control over the mountains of Israel, which before 1967 would have been part of the Kingdom of Jordan. Control over these mountains are a prerequisite for the next birth pang, the Gog-Magog invasion. So the fourth birth pang, Ezekiel 38:1 to 39:16. The Northern Alliance invasion of Israel is led by the Prince of Rosh, Gog being the title for the ruler of Magog. The ancient tribes that occupied Rosh were Magog, Meshech, and Tubal, which were between the Black and Caspian Seas. It is important to remember that these biblical names identify regions but not types of governments. Names like Rosh are Russia, and Meshech is Moscow, which is a straight line due north from Jerusalem. Other names refer to the general area between the Black and Caspian Seas and also include parts of Turkey and Iran. But Russia is the leader of this confederacy. Other members of the alliance include Ethiopia, Somalia, Germany, and Armenia. The countries involved in this invasion are Persia, present-day Iran; Kush, present-day Ethiopia; Put, present-day Somalia, which borders Ethiopia; Gomer, present-day Germany; and Togarmah, present-day Armenia. It is interesting to note that there are some Muslim, but not a single Arab nation participates. In the 11th century, an ancient Jewish rabbinic writing speaks of an invasion by Russia as a sign that the Messiah would soon come. They also present a two-Messiah view in connection with this war. One Messiah, the son of Ephraim or Joseph, was to suffer and die, and the second Messiah, the son of David, would rule and reign and bring peace to Israel, saying there would be 2 Messiahs coming at the same time as opposed to one Messiah coming 2 different times. When we look at the gospel accounts of Jesus' first advent, we can see that because Israel rejected their Messiah, especially as the son of David, on the grounds of demon possession while he was on the earth offering the kingdom to them, mentioned in Mark 3 and Matthew 12, that this is what resulted in there being 2 different times or 2 different comings. In Ezekiel, we read that the one responsible for this invasion is God. He is bringing the invasion about to punish Russia for her sins, namely anti-Semitism. In Ezekiel 38, 7-9, there is mention of the place where this invasion happens, the mountains in the land of Israel. A storm cloud covers the entire land. This shows the necessity of there being a Jewish state in existence. There are some things that need to be true about the Jewish state at the time of this invasion. Needs to be a restored land brought back from the sword or war. They are gathered out of many people, regathered in unbelief. The land with mountains that have a continual waste. Land brought forth out of the peoples. All these things are true of present-day Israel, but not of ancient Israel. The reason Russia wants to invade Israel can be seen in Ezekiel 38, verses 10-13. Israel has silver and gold and an abundance of oil. The Dead Sea contains 45 billion tons of minerals. This would give them a foothold in the Middle East as well. Besides the nations participating in the invasion, there are some nations that witness and object to the invasion, but do not intervene. These nations are said to come out of Tarshish, meaning the nation and colonies or other nations that they brought into existence. There could be any of the following possibilities: east coast of Africa, Spain, which includes Central and South America except Brazil, England, which includes USA, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and present-day Western democracies. We see God's view in Ezekiel 38, 14-16, where his purpose is to be sanctified in the eyes of the nations. In Ezekiel 38, 17-23, we read the destruction of the invaders. God sent prophets to prophesy in Israel. God is a jealous God. The Russian army will be destroyed by earthquakes, civil war, pestilence, blood, flood, hailstorms, and fire. In verse 23, we see God will be glorified without other nations helping. In Ezekiel 39, we see the law of recurrence, which means the recording of an event with the second recording of the same event, but giving more details. So the same event, the same period of time, but giving further details. So Dr. Fruchtenbaum believes Ezekiel 39 is a second recording of the events mentioned in Ezekiel 28 with more details of that same event. In 39, 1-6, the place of the destruction is mentioned as in the mountains of Israel that were given back to Israel in 1967, the Six-Day War. This sets the stage for fulfillment of this prophecy. The land of Russia will be destroyed by raining of brimstone causing destruction, ceasing to be a political force in the world. We see God's name being sanctified among the Gentile nations as well as in Israel. There will be a revival with many Jews turning to the Lord mentioned in verses 7 and 8. There will be 7 years of dismantling and burning of all the military equipment left behind, which will in turn be used for fuel. This plays a big part in figuring out when this takes place. Will it be pre-trib, mid-trib, post-trib, etc.? Then, in verses 11-16, 7 months is how long it will take to bury the dead, to cleanse the land. The burial place will be in one of the valleys east of the Mediterranean Sea in the Jordan Valley above the Dead Sea. The name of the city that overlooks the cemetery is called Hamanah, which means multitude. Dr. Fruchtenbaum believes there is 4 clues that support this Russian invasion happening pre-trib. Israel became a state in 1948, the waste places inhabited, dwelling in unwalled villages, so present-day kibbutzim. Israel dwelling securely, which means confidence, not necessarily peace or lack of war. Stay tuned for more information regarding the different views possible mentioned by both Dr. Fruchtenbaum and Dr. Andy Woods with their thoughts on the problems and the objections. See you next week.